I'm Evan Simonoff. I'm here with Steve Gresham, who is the founder of the Execution Project and the person who was the brainchild behind Next Chapter, which Financial Advisor is launching with the MMI. The question I want to ask you, Steve, is one of the biggest, thorniest questions facing financial advisors and their clients today. That's retirement income. We're seeing interest rates that are unprecedented, and in other parts of the world, the situation for retirees is even more dire, where countries have negative interest rates. In effect, you have to pay a bank to hold on to your money. We're not there yet in America, but we've heard a lot about lower for longer from the Fed and other people, and it's a global problem, but it's also a very personal problem for people who've worked and saved their entire lives. Can you share some of your thoughts about that? And maybe at some point we'll get into some solutions.
Well, yes, that's where the rubber meets the road. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's a terrific event. And so, there's a lot of really good ideas around it. And I appreciate you allowing me to share some of the time. So if you back up to where you said already, the kind of bigger picture, there is a demographic reality in the world. And so for most of the developed world, this issue of an aging population, which is a combination of fewer babies being born, certainly not at the rate that would replace the growth of the demographic, but also this issue of people just living longer. And when you put those two together, there really is a significant shift, really dramatic shift in what's gone on. Now, we talk a lot about the baby boom generation, and that's where we've kind of arrived as sort of a problem in the retirement income business, because we talked about this phenomenon for years and years. You and I have known each other for more than 20 years. We've been talking about retirement income, the retirement of the boomers. We've been talking about the impact of the demographic. We've looked at Japan. We've said that can't happen here until, of course, it does. And so now what? But here we are. And that's where, as you said, now let's get this thing on the ground, because up until now, it's been sort of a demographic abstract. It's been something that's out there that we talk about, but we haven't really dealt with. And the history of industries that have not paid more attention to this demographic, this baby boom generation is like an ongoing human wrecking ball. And they have laid waste to virtually every convention that's known to man, almost every industry. So if you think about the town that I grew up in outside of Boston, we probably had 5 or 6 elementary schools in our town. They're all gone. There's only a couple of them left. Most of them have been turned into condos or, get ready, senior living facilities for an awful lot of the people that probably attended those schools if they didn't leave the town. So there's kind of a weird sort of boomerang irony there. So I think what's happening now is a shift. And that's one of the reasons why we founded Next Chapter, with your help, with the other leaders at Financial Advisor and with the team at the MMI, because we're looking at it, but we got to do something. And so we could talk about the different perspectives and some of the different aspects that we have in working this through. But I think that's what you're saying. Let's connect the demographic with what's on the ground, because it's here. It's not going away.
When it comes to retirement income today, you have the issue of minuscule yields on bonds. It's pushed a lot of retirees into vehicles like dividend-paying stocks or high-yield bonds, because they simply can't survive on what they'll get in a bank or a short-term, investment-grade bond fund. Get very little. And some people are also concerned about, they might consider an annuity, but the annuity, if you look at a fixed annuity, they're investing in the same bonds that other companies are. An insurance company may be a little more clever at how to play the yield curve than the ordinary advisor, but it's still a really problematic paradox. And how do you see this all playing out? I mean, do you see people moving of just learning to manage their income better, maybe selling assets when we're in what seems like a very expensive stock market? A lot of people don't like to go into retirement with the thought that they're going to preserve their capital. But unless you're very well off or very frugal today, for most Americans, that's really a big problem.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty much everything that you just said, because it's going to be all hands on deck for almost any household. As you pointed out, one of the things we have to remember about the demographic that we're working with is that the average person is not really, really well off. You know, I've managed the retail strategy of Fidelity for a long time, lots and lots and lots of clients. But at the end of the day, most of the people don't have excess money, or most of the people don't have excess money when you consider that many of them may be one really serious health event away from a much different story. So if you think about what people have, I think there's going to be an increased creativity. Stuff you're going to get income from today may not be in that position at this very moment. So when you look forward, you may say that, well, perhaps my house is going to be of some value to me. So what's the best way to convert home equity into an income stream or a paycheck for me? One of the things we've done with the Alliance for Lifetime Income is to have people think about their ongoing savings and then the way they're going to spend that money so that they actually begin to create a bit of a hierarchy. So some people use a bucket strategy, specific accounts, but in the hierarchy of spending, make sure that your most common expenses, your groceries, your utilities, your mortgage, your rent, make sure that those are covered. So if you have those kinds of solutions created a la carte in some cases from very specific sources, you can begin to get more creative. Where I think the industry is going to struggle is that there has been this sort of preference using professionally managed assets and managed accounts. There has been a preference to sort of manage the client's money all in kind of a blob. So it's all together, again, with this sort of hazy view forward into what could be retirement. But when it arrives, you pretty much have to deconstruct everything that you've got so that you can say, I'm going to use this to pay for this. I'm going to use that to pay for that. As you point out, the interest rates or the dividend rate that's going to get spun off of any portion of that managed portfolio is probably not going to be the income level that the clients were hoping for. So that's why we've talked a lot about whether or not the 4% rule is still something that's still viable. And it's really hard to hang on to that, as you say, considering the drop in interest rates and what you might have to look at from a total return perspective. So I think what we'll end up with is multiple assets, multiple asset classes, multiple kinds of accounts being used much, much more carefully to create the solutions that people want and what they're going to need for retirement income. So creativity is going to be important.
One thing we've seen the last 5 months with the pandemic is a major spike in the American savings rate. That's partly because so many traditional spending outlets have been shut down. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard for even the classic American shop till you drop consumer to find some place to go. Do you see those changes as permanent in the psyche of clients? Do you think, how much of the change in behavior we're seeing is going to be temporary, and how much do you think will be permanent 3 years from now when this is all over? You did a lot of research at Fidelity on consumer preferences and what was driving them. It's something you're quite knowledgeable about. What do you see as the short-term effects and the long-term effects from the pandemic, and how they will affect advisors?
Sure. So I think the effect on advisors and the effect on clients is going to be very similar, because at the end of the day, they're all people, right? And so one of the things that we have seen is that this is our generational moment. So something always happens. In our earlier days, you and I, up until now, we probably would have said 9/11, since we were both New Yorkers at the time. We would say 9/11 might have been that generational moment. And what did that change for us? Well, that made us an awful lot more aware of the rest of the world, made us aware and more careful. It made us travel more safely. It made a lot of things that probably were a good idea already. It's something that we should have done. The pandemic, I think, ends up, of course, having the same kind of effect. The difference is, in this particular generational moment, there are 7.5 billion people along for this ride because there's almost no one that hasn't been touched unless they are really, really far off the grid. And so it makes people pause. I think especially if they're related to someone or have friends that have been personally affected, the COVID is claiming different and a greater number of victims every day. So there are those patients that lose their battle with the illness itself. There are the families that lose their loved ones. There are people that lose their jobs, people that lose their businesses, kids that lose their friends, they lose their school, they lose their advantages. And I think everyone is taking stock of what will happen next. There's certainly a lot of chomping at the bit to go back to a normalcy, but with the amount of impact that this crisis has had on some trends that were already underway, then I think a lot of those are going to stick. And so one of the things that I think has been good for financial advisors and for clients, that financial advisors who have been good at using virtual tools and have been disciplined about connecting with clients in a virtual way, not just financial advisors, but any professionals. I know a great geriatric psychiatrist works with older people, and he's fantastic with the people in person. But now more than half of his clients they're all geriatrics, they're all now on Zoom in some way, and they actually love it because they don't have to battle traffic, parking. They have all kind of anxiety about just going to the appointment and getting back. For some of them, to get to Cambridge, Massachusetts and go to that appointment and return is a 4-hour ordeal. Now they can sit in the comfort of their living room and they can turn on their iPad and they can have a conversation with their psychiatrist, and everything is just more calm. So I think there are an awful lot of great benefits. Advisors using virtual tools, connecting with clients, frankly, they can see more people. And what I've seen from really good advisors that are disciplined to be able to fill their calendar is that they have many, many more meetings, but most of the meetings they're having with the clients are shorter because they're more efficient and the clients know they can get them more often. So I think the benefits in many ways are going to outweigh an awful lot of the negatives that we see. And a lot of it's going to be driven by this kind of generational connection. This is our generational moment.
That's positive. And I guess if people spend less, it may be positive for advisors. I don't know how positive it will be for the overall economy, but that's something that we're going to have to deal with. How do you think advisors and their clients are going through this with respect to the next generation?
Well, I think the next generation is more prepared for the kind of advisors that are being minted in this pandemic. So the advisors that are comfortable using connectivity through technology, using virtual tools, being able to have the clients actually self-actualize some of the things that they do together, that's really the expectation of the younger generation. And it's not really that much younger. So we've forced an awful lot of people out of their comfort zone to be able to use technology, whether you're in your 80s, like that example I gave of the geriatric psychiatrist, or what the financial advisor is doing, or what younger people would do, like my adult children connecting with each other. My daughter's in London. The only way we've seen this kid is through FaceTime, but now that's become kind of a regular thing, and that's our expectation. So I think we are being drawn forward by technology that was already there. And it really is more of a question of a little bit of forced adoption. We pushed some people who were standing at the edge of the pool, we pushed them into the water, and that's not a bad thing.
Steve Gresham, The Execution Project, thank you very much today. Thank you all for watching. I'm Evan Simonoff, editor of Financial Advisor, and this is going to be part of an ongoing series with Steve and other folks involved with Next Chapter. So thank you all very much.